When the Titanic set sail on her maiden voyage, she was the largest moving object ever built by human hands. For a century, popular memory has focused on the massive iceberg as the sole antagonist of the tragedy, suggesting that nature simply overwhelmed the vessel. Ocean travel at the turn of the 20th century was remarkably safe. In the 40 years prior to 1912, only 4 lives had been lost on passenger ships crossing the North Atlantic. The Titanic was widely celebrated as the absolute pinnacle of this engineering progress. Her builders confidently guaranteed the ship could survive the worst-case scenario imagined at the time, a head-on collision with another massive vessel. They calculated she'd remain afloat for 2 to 3 days, providing time for a safe rescue. Looking at this diagram of the lower hull, we see 16 sequentially numbered watertight compartments. The core promise was that these segments could be sealed off if the hull was punctured. Yet, a single side-swiping impact sledded 6 of them and dragged the entire 46,000-ton structure underwater in under 3 hours. The rapid sinking was the result of a devastating alignment. Chemical vulnerabilities, architectural oversights, and extreme human overconfidence all converged perfectly on a single night in April. On April 14th, the Atlantic was dead calm. The freezing air created a thermal inversion, a visual mirage that bent the starlight and effectively masked the horizon from the lookouts stationed in the crow's nest. Throughout that Sunday, the ship received 6 separate warnings from other vessels about ice fields directly in their path. These messages arrived via the relatively new technology of wireless telegraphy. The wireless operators were not formally integrated into the Titanic's crew. They were independent contractors hired by the Marconi Company, focused entirely on transmitting personal messages for wealthy passengers. By 11 p.m., the senior operator was so backlogged with passenger telegrams that he told a nearby ship warning of ice to shut up. Captain Edward John Smith relied heavily on standard North Atlantic operating procedures. With 40 years of safe crossings behind him, he believed that if the lookout spotted an obstacle, the ship could easily turn in time. Despite the general knowledge of ice ahead, he maintained a speed of 22 knots through the pitch-black freezing ocean. Supreme confidence in the ship's durability meant critical information was treated as a nuisance. The era's most advanced communication tool was reduced to background noise, leaving the bridge completely blind to the immediate reality ahead. At 11:40 p.m., the lookout spotted the massive iceberg less than a quarter mile ahead. As the ship's enormous mass sideswiped the ice, staggering physical forces slammed into the right side of the hull. This graph plots impact energy against temperature. The data points show the Titanic's hull steel on the right, compared to modern A36 steel on the left. Because the Titanic steel contained high levels of sulfur, its transition temperature was dangerously high. In freezing water, the metal lost its ductility and became brittle. Holding those massive steel plates together were roughly 3 million hydraulically driven wrought-iron rivets, and those rivets were compromised long before the ship ever left Belfast. Metallurgical analysis reveals that the wrought iron used for the rivets contained an average of over 9% slag, more than 3 times the amount permitted today. This dense concentration of impurities made the iron highly susceptible to fracturing in the cold. As the iceberg scraped along 300 feet of the hull, the immense pressure met frozen, brittle iron. The rivet heads snapped off. Instead of the steel tearing, the seams between the massive plates unzipped, opening a lethal inlet for the ocean. The engineers designed the largest vessel on Earth to withstand a massive external collision, but they built it with materials that failed at the microscopic level when tested by freezing water. Immediately after the collision, the crew sealed the watertight doors in the lower section. For a brief moment, they operated under the assumption that the damage was contained and the ship was secure. Looking at this diagram, notice the thick black lines denoting the damage. The transverse bulkheads separating these compartments stopped just above the waterline. As front compartments filled, the bow sank downward. Water simply poured over the top into the next compartment, cascading backward. If there had been no compartments at all, the incoming water would have leveled out across the entire length of the hull, keeping the ship horizontal and afloat for perhaps another 6 hours. Instead, by trapping the immense weight entirely in the bow, the compartments accelerated the steep forward pitch. The primary architectural feature explicitly designed to keep the vessel alive became the exact physical mechanism that dragged it rapidly to the bottom. As the tilt of the deck became undeniable, passengers and crew faced a devastating reality. The Titanic carried lifeboats for just over half of the 2,200 people on board. This severe shortage was completely legal. The British Board of Trade regulations governing lifeboat capacity were written in 1894, designed for vessels a quarter of the Titanic's size, and had never been updated. The panic was worsened by a lack of basic training. Unaware that the lifeboats had been fully weight-tested before departure, officers feared the lowering mechanisms would buckle under a full capacity of 65 people. As a result, several boats were lowered into the dark ocean only half full. Meanwhile, roughly 10 miles north, the cargo steamer Californian sat motionless in the ice field. Her officers clearly saw the Titanic's distress rockets, but failed to wake their sole radio operator, who was asleep off-duty. The staggering loss of life resulted from a total systemic collapse. Outdated laws, poor crew training, and an absence of standard communication protocols doomed over 1,000 people who could have been saved. By the time the rescue ship Carpathia arrived in the morning daylight, only 705 survivors remained to be pulled from the wire. 1,517 passengers and crew had perished in the freezing Atlantic. The sheer scale of the disaster triggered intense official investigations in both Washington and London. These hearings forced the global maritime industry to immediately examine its practices. The resulting international agreements mandated 24-hour wireless operation for large vessels and required matching lifeboat capacity for every single soul on board. Ships were subsequently constructed with double hulls and taller bulkheads, and an international ice patrol was established to track hazardous ice fields. For 73 years, the fractured hull rested unseen under 12,000 feet of water, until a deep-sea expedition finally located it in 1985. Today, the quiet remains of the Titanic offer a sobering lesson. The wreck stands not as a victim of an unpredictable ocean, but as a permanent warning of what occurs when supreme human confidence ignores the quiet structural realities of its own design.